The National Association of School Governing Bodies say over 16,000 teachers with criminal records are still teaching. Those with criminal records were brought to the attention of the Basic Education South African Council for Educators. Joining us to discuss this further is Nombuso Cimbi, who is the South African Democratic Teachers Union spokesperson, and Matakanye, who is the Secretary General of the National Association of School Governing Bodies, as well as Enoch Rabutapi, who is the Acting Deputy Director General for Teacher Development at the Department of Basic Education. A very good evening to you all. Thank you so much for having this very important conversation. And I would like to start with you, Matakanyane Hore. How did we get ourselves where convicted criminals are teaching school children? What does the law say when it comes to ex-offenders and our education system?
Thank you very much, Martha. Good evening, and your viewers at home, and Rabutapi over there. Look, we really have to question the Department of Education to say, really, do we have the monitoring system? And if we don't have the monitoring system, what is it that we must do? Not only the department, but we must also ask South African Council of Educators to say, how do you give a license to a person that you don't know? Because what we think supposed to happen was that they know that these teachers come from universities. And those universities also must know these teachers, whether they have got qualification or they don't have qualification, because it means, therefore, we have people who do not have the qualification in the system. Then we have hired criminals into the system because criminals were able to buy their way through into the system. And the law says criminals are not allowed to work with children. Now, we don't know how they happen to come and work with our children. South African Schools Act does not allow that. Children's Act does not allow that. Children's Justice Act does not allow that. Now, we really don't know. Maybe the department will tell us.
Yeah, and we do have the department, Ntate Matakanye, because that is also an important question. Sorry to interject you there, but I would like the department to also respond to that. We've got the Acting Deputy Director General, Enoch Rabutapi. If you could just let us know, Mr. Rabutapi, what are your monitoring mechanisms as the department, and why do we find ourselves in this position when the law is pretty clear?
Okay, thank you very much, Paul, and good evening to the viewers. Good evening to Ntate Matakanye and Nomu Save. So, just to indicate that there are various factors that have actually contributed to the problem of where we are now. The law that makes a requirement for us as a department to vet teachers before they come into our system, it's a 2007 law. Now, we have a lot of educators who have come into the system, many of whom are much older educators who did not go through any form of vetting before they were employed. Subsequent to 2007, the laws governing vetting of employees as a result of increase in cases of gender-based violence and violence against children were strengthened in 2007 with the latest revision of the law happening in 2021. Now, the 2021 revisions of the Child Act requires that everybody who is employed in the system has to be vetted, not only the new ones who are coming into the system. So now we are at the point where, as a department, we have to put systems in place to vet all the 400,000 teachers who are employed in the system, because that's what the new law is requiring. And the vetting process, it's not an easy process. Firstly, we have to work together with the South African Police Services, as well as the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. The Department of Justice are the custodians of the law. So technically, they are the ones who are responsible for the vetting of the actual vetting process.
Mr.
So
Rabu-Tapi, just to come in there, would you not say you are also slightly passing the buck? Because as the Department of Basic Education, surely you should be also vetting teachers, and you're saying it isn't easy to do, but to find out if somebody has a criminal record, that surely can't be too difficult for your department to do to ensure the safety of children.
No, we're not passing the buck. We have to comply with the law, and the law prescribes processes that must be followed for that vetting to happen. And so this law enjoins us as the Department of Basic Education, it enjoins the South African Police Service, and it enjoins the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. And I was just trying to explain what the process is. So once the law was passed, we took an undertaking as a department that the vetting process of all educators within the system will commence starting from July 2022. And our plan was that by December 2023, all the educators that are in the employ of our schools should have gone through the vetting process. Yeah. But then we experienced challenges as we were going through the process as per the prescripts of the law. Firstly, educators are supposed to go to a police station, and at the police station, they have to complete what is called a J738 form. With their ID and fingerprints. Now, once this form is completed, and educators have got to pay for this form. Once it is completed, then this form must be taken to the offices of the Department of Justice, where they will now process the information and issue a clearance in terms of their procedures, and then the educator must then go back to the police station, where they will be issued with a report that indicates that they have been cleared. Now, there are complications that we have experienced as a department with that process. Firstly, not all police stations are clear about what is it that they are expected to do. And some of the police stations are not even aware of this process that we are explaining. Secondly, there's an issue of payments. Provincial Education Department have pledged that they will fund or they will pay for the clearance report of these educators. Unfortunately, the mechanisms of making payments available to South African Police Services were not clear, and that's why at the moment we are sorting out all those procedural issues with South African Police Services.
I'd like to come in there. Sorry, Mr. Rabu-Tapi. We also do have other guests that and also in the interest of time, that we would like to include in this conversation. And Satu, I'd like to include at this point, Nomoso, you're hearing what the Department of Education is saying, that there are challenges. There was an intention that by December 2023 that all educators would be vetted. But here we are, we find ourselves with over 16,000, around 16,000 who aren't and have criminal records and are still teaching. As Satu, how big of an issue is this?
Yes, we are aware of, from the news outlets of what has, that there are 16,000 teachers who have criminal records. It is indeed worrying that you have teachers with these records when we know very well that schools are supposed to be safe places for learners to learn. As my colleague Enoch has explained, the processes. Yes, we are part and parcel as unions. We are part and parcel of the process. We agreed to it as the union. We agreed, and we are encouraging our members to undertake the process. However, if one looks at this, yes, it is quite alarming that it is 16,000. We would like to see the data being explained further, because it doesn't mean that it's not that every criminal record means that a teacher, that it disqualifies one from teaching. There are records such as if one were to be convicted of culpable homicide. I'm making an example. You drive your car, you cause an accident, someone dies, and then you have that that record of culpable homicide. That record cannot say that you cannot teach. So we would like to see this data being explained further, to see exactly yes, we do understand that sexual offenses are also part of it, and we are worried. We do not want to see sexual predators in our school, but we need to see more clarity on this data, because it is causing an alarm amongst the parents, amongst communities, that our schools have this. So we'd like to see the department really unpacking these figures, so that we know exactly what are these people being convicted of.
Yeah, so also in that data that you're asking for a bit more clarity, you do mention that, there are sexual offences, there's rape, there's murder, there's theft, there's robbery, there's drug-related crimes, housebreaking. These are some of the charges that these educators are allegedly have faced as well. So they're quite serious crimes, as opposed to, the examples that you've made just now. But in closing, I'd like to also bring in Mr. Matakane to just react to what you've just heard now from the department as well, the challenges that they say they're facing, the initiatives that they're saying they've put in place now to try and curb this problem. Are these answers satisfactory to you?
No, it is not really. It is not. It is not. Well, I heard what the department has said. I think the buck stops with the department. Department, as much as they are talking about Justice Department, they are talking about police and they are a responsible state department. They're supposed to, if I to decide on their behalf, was to say it's just one year process, just to write a circular that will say all teachers, all of them, we want them to clear themselves. And to clear themselves, go to the police station, ensure that you are cleared, and then come back. And they will have a data. Or they can just have a tender. They can have a tender to somebody to look into that, so that all these things are cleared. Well, I hear my comrades there, Comrade Nomsa, and I don't think the unions are involved really, because they have to protect their members. And all those people, whether they've got records or they don't have records, those are their members. They must defend them. Now, but what we are talking about is the Department of Education, because the buck starts. We cannot as parents, we cannot as communities, when we find out that this teacher has criminal records, then we go to the Department of Justice, we go to the Department of Police and all those. We go to the Department of, because the Department of Education, that's the one that makes sifting. They sift these teachers. You can't just sift without asking questions. There must be questions before you sift And after that, and when you are satisfied that you have assisted, then you send these teachers to different schools where they applied. Then you know you have satisfied yourself that now these teachers, yes, these are professionals that are going to stand in front of our children,
Excellent.
in front of the children of this country. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
Unfortunately, that's
really
all the time we have, Mr. Matakane. Thank you so much for answering those questions as well. And thank you to our guests as well for having this very important conversation. Sadly, we have run out of time.